Welcome to the RC Aerobatics podcast. I am your host, Rich Whitlow. This episode, we get to speak with Lou Matustik. Lou is an aerobatics pilot who lives in Ohio. Lou competes in IMAC Unlimited class and F3A Pattern Masters class. Lou has competed in many high-profile competitions, including Clover Creek and the Tucson Aerobatic Shootout. We talk about his history, his relationship as a caller, his practice routine, and what he has going on now. Thanks for listening to the show. Please like and subscribe. Welcome, Lou. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Rich, and I appreciate all your efforts to promote RC aerobatics from IMAC and Pattern.
Oh, terrific. Yeah, it's I love it, so might as well promote it so everybody else does too, right?
Yeah, it's great.
Well, look, why don't we start off? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, where you live and where you grew up?
Well, I originally grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, and went to college at the University of Missouri-Rolla to study mechanical engineering. And when I graduated there, was offered a job in Columbus, Ohio to work for the electric utility here. So I moved here in 1986 and worked at the electric utility for 33 years and retired about 3 years ago.
Oh, awesome. I am certainly jealous. I'm still 10 years away from retirement, but I would love to be there right now.
Well, it was tough being in the office on nice weather days, knowing I'd rather be out flying. And so now in retired life, I can take advantage of good flying weather.
Well, good for you. Good for you. Well, as a fellow mechanical engineer, I know it's always an interesting life, and we tend to like gadgets, and gadgets can be airplanes. So I can see where the interest comes from. Yeah. How did you get into the RC hobby?
Well, growing up, my father is a lifelong modeler, and so growing up, he got me into flying, mostly control line, a little free flight, from, I want to say 4 or 5 years old. And we flew quite a bit of control line, competitive control line, flew at the Nationals in the 70s. I flew an event called Control Line Navy Carrier, if you're familiar with that one. Was in Lake Charles, Louisiana, for several events down there in the 70s and other places. And then I guess through college, I was not flying a whole lot, just when I would be spending time with my father. But what happened, my uncle passed away maybe right around late 90s, and my father and I inherited his RC planes. And my dad had taken a few of the RC planes as my uncle had aged and learned to fly them a little bit, and I would go with him and fly a little bit. But then we inherited probably, 12 or 15 of his planes when he passed away. So then that really gave us a lot of motivation to try and get all of them flying and that type of thing. So as we worked our way through them, we both got a little more involved in flying RC. And from there, living in Columbus, Ohio, I happened to run into Kurt Kelling here. He was flying control line also here, and my father and I met Kurt, and interestingly, we had both gone to the same college, but we didn't know each other. We had a lot in common, but Kurt was kind of getting into RC and flying more RC at the same time as well. So that kind of all built together, and then gradually over a course of a couple of years, he got more involved in flying the IMAC, and I just followed along in his footsteps that way.
Okay, very good. So what year was this that you started flying? Y'all started flying IMAC?
Probably around. I think he was more like the early 2000s, and maybe I'm a couple of years behind, 2003 or 4 time frame.
Oh, okay. Very good. And how long was it before you started the pattern?
Pretty soon I did fly in a couple of pattern contests, and it might have been like the 2006 or 7. I flew in the pattern Nats, but then gradually got away from that and just focused on the IMAC. But now in my retirement over the
Hmm.
last 3 or 4 years, knew I could take on a little more modeling activity, and got into the
Hmm.
pattern, re got into the pattern more actively.
Gotcha. And when you started flying IMAC, I know you fly unlimited now. Did it take you a while to get to the unlimited class, or did you move up pretty quickly?
Oh yeah, it took a while. It took a while to get to the basic class. I think that's one really good thing about IMAC is the very structured progression of
Hmm.
the sequences through the classes. I think that's a great thing, a very very good thing. Good way. I mean, if you don't have that kind of structure to your flying, it just is quite different than what we do.
Right, right. Yeah, the building blocks are kind of important. And I've also learned how you practice makes a big makes a big difference too. Do you have any routines in your practice that help you move along and get prepared for contests?
Well, first off, I think, for learning new maneuvers and new things, just good flying weather. So, that's moderate winds, I guess, is the main thing. So,
Hmm.
thinking of that as a first step. But as far as competition preparation, uh, flying more, and as you get closer to contest, you try and fly every day that you can. Certainly,
Hmm.
it's a perishable skill. For me, it's a perishable skill.
Yeah,
So, if
absolutely.
you don't fly it regularly, there's some rust that accumulates, so you need to knock that off. And then,
Hmm.
what's really been challenging to me the last several years is going back and forth between the pattern plane and the IMAC plane, and because there's quite a bit
Right.
of difference there to fly both, either of them at a high level, and
Hmm.
they're quite different. The pattern plane is, I don't know, maybe analogy might be like a stock car, and
Hmm.
the IMAC plane's more like a stock car, and the pattern plane maybe more like a sports car or something like that, a little more nimble and light on the sticks, and
Yeah.
so switching between the two is a big challenge for me. And I will say, I think it's a very helpful challenge to RC piloting skills to fly the two different types of airplanes and learn
Hmm.
their tendencies, characteristics, etc. So it's been very good for me.
Yeah. Do you have a is going from one from IMAC to pattern or pattern to IMAC, either one of those more difficult? I find the IMAC tends to be a little bit more exaggerated in my stick movements. But do you find either one more difficult than the other?
I don't think so. It's just the adapting from one to the other.
Hmm. All right. And which IMAC plane are you currently flying?
I have the Cardin Pro.
Uh huh.
Um,
Terrific. And is that has a DA 200 on it?
yes, yes, and
Okay.
it's a great airplane, and
Hmm.
I'm just amazed that I get to fly a plane with that kind of performance, and
Right.
that's something about RC aerobatics. That we're flying very high performance aircraft to do the things that we're doing now, and if we weren't pushed by the competition aspect, we probably wouldn't be flying planes that had these kind of capabilities. And maybe the only downside of this flying RC aerobatics is after you fly high performance airplanes, you really don't want to fly planes that don't fly very well anymore. So get a little
Yeah.
particular that way.
Right, right. I feel your pain on that because every now and then somebody will say, "Hey, will you take me up on my trainer and buddy box me?" And I feel like I'm so behind the airplane, it's like I'm overflying it and trying to make it do things it really doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
Uh, and pattern plane. Which pattern plane are you flying?
The BJ Craft Invitation.
Oh, okay, very good. And which power plant do you use?
It has a Hymax motor in it.
The Hymax motor.
Yes.
Okay, terrific. And you fly Futaba, is that right?
I have Futaba, yes. And
Okay,
I'm on the
terrific.
team Futaba and longtime Futaba user. And, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I know there's a lot of new radio equipment out there and new technology, and I'm just not a real tech person. So
Mm-hmm.
I stick with tend to stick with the older, more proven things, and have had very solid radio use with all the Futaba equipment I've had.
Yeah, I think it's smart to pick whichever radio you like and go with it, and then learn everything it does. There's so many people who'll say, I need this to do this. Can somebody program it for me? It's like you need to learn your radio, no doubt about it. Um, do you have a favorite between the aerobatics? Do you prefer flying one over the other, or just enjoy flying it?
No, I like them both, and they're both incredible performing planes. So to be able to fly those sequences is just a real treat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And watching you guys fly those top classes, it's a treat to watch too. Maybe one day I'll do it without feeling like I'm gonna put the plane in the ground. Oh, well, I know you and Kurt have kind of had a partnership of flying and calling for each other, at least for the while that I've known you guys. How long have you been doing this, and what kind of benefits do you think there is in having a dedicated caller and calling partner like that?
Yeah, we've been working together probably 20 years, and it is very beneficial. And in general, for anyone flying RC aerobatics, to have someone else with them, it's a very hard activity to do solo. I mean, to I don't know if critique is the right word, but to even coach yourself is very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And having someone, another person with you observing, there's certain things that for me are very difficult to tell when you're piloting. But if you're watching, observing, or coaching, you can give a lot of feedback. So it's really helpful to have someone else to work with. And then when you've worked with someone as long as he and I have worked together, that just uh, that relationship is developed and helps out a lot. So we're able to give tips back and forth that are helpful to each of us. And
Mm-hmm.
then the calling
Yeah,
part
absolutely.
is another thing. That first off, that's just getting your plane set up and flying and practicing, etc. But then calling for one another and knowing what the pilot needs to hear is very helpful. And then I guess everyone tends to focus on calling about just the maneuvers, and what I'd like to add is the avoidance of midair collisions is pretty important as well. And that's
Absolutely.
probably the worst thing that I know of in flying RC aerobatics when you have multiple planes in the air and the potential for midair, and it happens, and it's awful. So, a good
Right.
caller trying to help minimize the chance of midairs occurring is a big deal, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know when you're piloting, and the next thing you know, this plane goes right by you, and you can't even tell if it was really close or just seemed like it was close. And having someone there saying you're clear, or avoid or pull right or whatever is it's a comfort in your flying. Because I know I can get a little nervy if I feel like there's somebody right there on my tail or could be coming in my direction for sure.
Unfortunately, in our region of pattern, there has been three mid-airs in the regional contest so far here this year, and So there's been discussion of that, and I'm lobbying or
Hmm.
pushing a little bit for avoidance, allowing for avoidance in pattern like we have in the IMAC.
Hmm. Right, right. I would be 100% behind you on that because it is. There's no reason. I mean, there's no reason not to save the airplanes. I mean, they're too expensive and they take too much time to set up and get it flying the way you want it to fly.
That's the thing about the mid-airs. I mean, everybody, I think, just thinks of the cost of the plane, several $1,000s. And, I know that's a big amount of money and that's important. But man, it's just the hours and hours of setup. And even if you have the same plane again and you got to start from scratch, there's a lot of hours and a lot of work that goes into it to get it back to that level that it was likely at when you had the mid-air.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that would certainly be something I think would be beneficial to implement. Um, I know we saw each other at IMAC Nats. How many years have you guys competed in the Nats?
Uh, I want to say like I'm 17 and probably Kurt is a few years more than that.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And what do you like most about going to the Nats?
Well, let's see. It's a great place to fly, and it's a big challenge to fly in that competition there. And it's neat to see
Yeah.
people from different areas of the country and how different people fly the aerobatic sequences. Even though they're known
Hmm.
sequences, you all have different variations in how they're presented.
Hmm.
Uh, the fact we get to fly for multiple days is great as well,
Yeah.
and they're enjoyable events.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's certainly a marathon, but at the same time, at the end of the Nats, if if you treated it well, at least I find you're flying so much more consistent on the last day than you were on the first day. At
Yeah, that's
least
a good
at
point.
least I was. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of flying for sure. What's been your most memorable contest?
I don't know if I have a particular most memorable, but some of those contests at Clover Creek Aerodrome, were just incredible. The
Hmm.
hospitality the Schroeders extended to us, and the efforts of everyone to put on those very nice events. Those are definitely memorable. The big trips out to the Tucson Aerobatic Shootout, just the logistics that are
Hmm.
involved to get everything to a remote location and fly. That to me is memorable. Uh,
Yeah.
and I've done some other memorable contests. We went to the Canadian Nationals and flew scale
Wow.
aerobatics there in I think 2007. That was a very nice event. And another one I can think of back in the memory banks is Andy Kane used to put on this contest in Punta Gorda, Florida, called the JR Challenge, and
Uh huh.
uh, those were very memorable contests as well. He had a unique event there that I don't know if you've ever heard of or others may or may not remember, but it was called Blind Man's Bluff, kind of a variation of
Uh huh.
unknown sequence, where
Oh.
basically the pilots were gathered, sequestered in a tent, and he took them out one at a time to make your flight. And basically, you had a caller that you didn't know that called a sequence for you to fly. I mean, cold when you were in the air.
Wow.
So that was I don't know if you'd ever heard of that one.
No.
It was a little different. I don't know if you knew Andy, but he was quite a character and came up with some different ideas like this.
No, I didn't. But that does sound like he is because that would be quite a interesting challenge for sure.
He used to call it an IMAC like contest. That was his label. And then in general, that's another good thing to mention. I mean, back from history, IMAC, there used to be when I first started quite a bit more variation in sequences and unknowns and judging criteria, et cetera. And one thing that has really happened over these 20 years is IMAC has really became a lot more defined in terms of judging criteria and standardization of sequences, and that's all good, And then now the idea, not even just within the U.S., but that other places around the world are doing that in a similar manner is pretty neat, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I've noticed, flying pattern. That's been a big difference to me to get used to. I look at an arrestee and fly it, and then I've always got Don or a couple of guys down here will say, "You didn't read the description, did you?" And sometimes there's little tweaks in the description that don't match the arrestee, so they're not always the same.
The classic judging criteria thing I remember, I don't know if it was Frank Knoll or Mark Jorgensen told me this, but maybe a late 90s or sometime in the 90s scale aerobatic contests are at the highest score on the loop was who could do the biggest loop.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Oh, well, I can tell you what, there's some guys who can do some big loops and some big rollers.
Yes, yes.
No doubt about it. Oh, are there any other major competitions that you've been a part of? You named a lot of them, but any other big ones that have happened over the years that you've been able to go to?
No, I don't know. I mean, just some of those control line contests were pretty big that I was at then. I mean, that's one trend from, control line in the 70s and 80s and even RC in the early 2000s. The entrant numbers and participation was just so much higher than it is now. It's a shame to see that. And, I guess on an individual level, I try to do what I can to encourage other people to get involved in RC aerobatics now, and I know you do through your efforts, and other people like Toby Silhavy is so active.
Absolutely.
Trying to recruit people, and we do what we can to try and increase interest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tell you, Toby's one, he puts us to shame. I don't think he ever sleeps.
Right.
All the different stuff he's working on, it's something.
Right.
It's something.
One other interesting thing I think about competition, last fall I helped out at an IAC competition here in Ohio. They had a regional contest. And I don't know if you've been to any of those, but it's just like our regional IMAC contest. They had about 20 planes there, and other than the guys pushing the planes around in the pits, et cetera, the flying and judging is just they're higher up. They're for safety a little harder to see in some regards, a little farther away, but it's just like an IMAC contest in my assessment.
Yeah, they used to have a regional one in Sherman, and they always tried to have our contest close to that contest so we could watch. But they stopped doing that a couple of years ago, so we haven't seen it in a couple of years. But
it's really
you're right.
It's really cool. If anybody ever has a chance to go and watch or participate and help out, it's really neat.
It is, and amazing. The sizes of the airplanes. I think I expected some of these airplanes to be a little bigger than they are.
No, I mean, you see,
but I guess
we're our planes are just less than half the size of what they're flying.
Right. So it's pretty neat to see for sure. Have you won any contests or gotten any accolades that you've been proud of getting?
Well, last year I was able to finish highest in the points in our region in the IMAC, Scale Aerobatic Unlimited class, and in the pattern class, Masters class, won that. So I won both season championships in the same year. So that was quite an accomplishment.
Oh, terrific. Yeah, congratulations. That's awesome. That reminds me, you're flying the Masters class, and I know in a couple of years we're going to start flying the P pattern, I believe, in Masters. You have any opinions about that, or are you looking forward to doing that? Or
it's okay. I just hope it doesn't discourage any current master's pilots for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows,
Right.
but that's all fine. I did fly into FAI class in one contest earlier this year, so I got a taste of that. And they fly an extremely difficult finals sequence.
Right.
And I was able to fly that and complete that. And I want to say that's one of my biggest accomplishments in flying RC aerobatics is flying that current
Flying the F.
the F sequence and flying it well. And
Yeah.
so, but I need some more skills development before I'm ready to compete regularly and fly that class competitively.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, one thing I've been thinking of is I was wondering if it wouldn't make masters, just this giant class because of people who were flying FAI. Now they don't have to fly F, and people who are moving up also in that class. So I wonder if that might not cause a kind of a dam of a bunch of pilots getting there. But I guess that's a good thing to have. If we can get a bunch of pilots in any class, that'd be great. For sure. Well, I know you have Futaba as a sponsor. Do you have any other sponsors that
No.
that you want to mention?
No.
No, just your Futaba. All right, very good. Very good. And if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach you? Email, social media? What is the best way to do that?
You have the Facebook account, but I'm not on that regularly, and not really good way to reach me. Just the email is probably the best. Should I give that?
Okay, terrific. I'll put it in the show notes. I'll put your email in the show notes, and they'll be able to see it there, and then if they want to reach out, they'll have that ability to do that.
Thanks, Rick.
Well, very good. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. I really enjoyed seeing you guys at the Nats, and looking forward to seeing you again at Pattern Nats. I don't know how many years I'm going to be able to go to both until I retire, but when I can, I will, that's for sure. But thanks for coming on, and look forward to seeing you in a month, and take care.
Look forward to seeing you, Rich. Thanks for all your efforts for RC Aerobatics.
All right, you bet. Take care.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. A very special thanks to my good friend John Gros, who wrote the song Deep in the Mud that is used as the show bumper music. Check him out on his website, www.johnpapagros.com. A link is in the show notes. See you at the next episode.